All right. So as you know, today we're starting off the revision classes, right? So I'll be trying to cover all areas during revision. We're first starting off with costing. Okay. Starting off with costing. You all know that there are 5 different costing techniques that we looked at. ABC costing, life cycle target costing, throughput accounting, and also environmental costing. So I'll just briefly be looking at each area and then doing questions from the study hub from each area, right? One question each is what I'll be covering. But before I start, I'll just give you an introduction. We're starting off with ABC costing. With ABC costing, it's generally a costing method that is used in organizations that have a huge amount of overhead costs. And in companies that managing overhead costs are very important part, right? For them, activity-based costing is more recommended. What happens is traditionally they use absorption and marginal costing, but ABC costing is a more accurate way of allocating overhead cost, right? So we introduced you how you calculated OAR traditionally. Traditionally, OAR was calculated by taking budgeted overheads divided by a single blanket OAR. Either you took complete total labor hours, or you took machine hours, or you took number of units, right? So traditionally, you believe that overheads were all driven by labor hours, machine hours, or number of units, right? With ABC costing, we understand that overheads also have different parts and they're divided into different categories, and each category will have a cost driver. And we aim to find a cost per driver, overhead cost per driver, and we try to better allocate overhead costs more accurately so that it can be controlled as well. Right, so with ABC costing, we go with cost drivers. We divide overhead costs into component parts. And for each overhead, we identify a cost driver. You remember? And then we use 5 steps, right, to allocate these overheads and absorb the overheads into product costs. We first identify the different activities, step number 1. We then allocate the cost to each activity. We then identify a cost driver for each activity. In step 4, we find cost per driver. How do you do that? You take the total overheads for each activity, divide by total drivers. In cost, it's step number 5. We absorb the overhead cost into the product, right? So I'll be doing a question. Let's see how it's done. So the main advantages with ABC costing is that overhead costs are more accurately allocated, and you understand what drives the overhead costs, right? And therefore, when you control the drivers, you can also control the overheads. For example, if you reduce the number of deliveries, you can reduce delivery cost, right? Similar to that. However, it's very suitable for companies that have a very big amount of overheads. For companies where overhead costs are a tiny part of their cost, this entire process is very time consuming. It's very time consuming process, and not everyone will understand it because it is a complex, the steps are not done. It's not done in a single step. You have to follow 5 steps to get and absorb the overheads into the product. So not all managers will understand it. Staff may be resistant to, traditionally they have been just using one formula to calculate OAR. But now staff may show resistance. In real business situations, it's more overheads than what you get in a question. In a question, you might get 5. But in a real world business, there may be about 200. It's a huge task. And not all staff will be okay with it. Right? They may show resistance and you might have to train them. So, and also it's not very easy to match your drivers, right? It's an arbitrary lengthy process and can be very time consuming as well. In service organizations, also you can use ABC costing. So ABC costing is not only suitable for manufacturing companies, it is also suitable for service businesses, right? So that's it about ABC costing. Let's go into a question, right? So for each area, we'll be doing one question. I'll be giving you all a brief summary of the area and then I'm doing questions from the study hub. Ashmat, you have to practice questions from the mixed area. You That's right. So you are that area is pretty wrong. You had got that right. Yes, right. Thank you. That's what I think. Still got 66 to 50. I got the I think that's it. So we are doing let me see, cost accounting. I'm going to do one question from ABC costing. I told you this costing areas will only come in section B. It will not be seen in section C. That has been an adjustment for the syllabus, right? Please excuse my voice because I'm having a very bad throat today, but I'm trying my best. Did we do brick by brick in class? Did we do this? GC. I did it. Because I'm trying to do questions that I didn't do in class. No, I am not done. I've gone gadget coding. So we are doing brick by brick. Brick by brick provides a range of building services, including garage conversions and extensions to properties. So there are two main services, garage conversions, and then another one called extensions to properties. BBB has a policy to price all jobs at budgeted total cost plus 50%. Overheads are currently absorbed on a labor hour basis, meaning they're using a traditional overhead costing, and they are calculating their OAR by taking total overheads divided by total labor hours. That's the method they're using currently. However, BBB has found that it has fewer GC contracts than expected. And it believes that this is because the current overhead absorption method apportions an excessive amount of overheads to GC, leading to a price that is uncompetitive. The company is now considering moving to an activity-based cost approach. You are provided with the following data relating to the total overheads incurred in GC and XEX. Overhead categories are given to you. You can see that they've divided the overheads into three: supervision, planning, and property related. Site visits. Supervision is driven by site visits. There are 500 site years.
Miss, so actually, I'm facing horrible connection in my in the Zoom. If I join on YouTube, if I have any doubts, can I text you on WhatsApp? Is that okay?
Okay. I have done this in class, Atika. Really?
Sorry, miss.
Okay, okay. Anna, that's fine. But Atika, have I done this in class?
Yeah, so if I WhatsApp it to you, is it okay?
Yeah, that's okay. This boy, have you done it? Just check the book. Yeah. Okay, because Atika is saying I've done this, I'll do Beckett, but Beckett I have anyways done. These are the questions I did in class, no gadget. I have done this by the way. But even gadget too, I have done. I've also done this in class. I have not done Jola PLC and Akbar. Jola was there in study hub. Maybe we can do Jola, no? So basically, for ABC, whatever question that was there, I have done. Go to the PM study hub kit. Because I have done, yeah, I have done all the questions on the study hub, guys. Right, so there's one question remaining here called Jola, and I'm doing that. I want to teach you mainly how that 5 steps are used, right? I told you, right, by the end, we would have done all the questions. You can see that, I think. Okay, Jola Publishing. The thing with Jola is that it's a section C question, but you know what? It's not going to be coming in section C, right? So, but it's good for practice, right? We can do it for practice. They've changed the syllabus. They changed the syllabus, and they will not be giving it in section C. But it's okay. We can just learn the concept. Jola Publishing publishes 2 forms of books. I think it's better if I. Okay, it publishes 2 forms of books. The company publishes the children's book, which is sold in large quantities to government-controlled schools. The book is produced in only 4 large production runs. Yes. Hello, Tufa. Tufa, you were from this batch or the previous batch? I remember you, but I think you were from a different batch, no? Last time's batch. Previous batch, yes, correct. Jola Publishing publishes 2 forms of books. The company publishes the children's book, which is sold in large quantities to government-controlled schools. The book is produced in only 4 large production runs, but goes through frequent government inspections and quality assurance checks. The paper used is strong, designed to resist the damage that can be caused by the young children it is produced for. The book has only a few words and relies on pictures to convey the meaning. So it's like a children's book, like even very small children. It's picture book. Yes. The second book is Comprehensive Technical Journal. It is produced in monthly production runs 12 times a year. The paper used is of relatively poor quality and is not subject to any government control, and consequently only a small number of inspections are carried out. The technical journal, right? The technical journal uses far more machine hours than the children's book in its production. The directors are concerned about the performance of the 2 books and are wondering what the impact would be of a switch to an activity-based costing approach to overhead accounting for overheads. They currently use absorption costing based on machine hours to calculate their overhead calculations. They have accurately produced an analysis for the accounting year just completed as follows. So 1 unit of CB using not using ABC, using absorption costing. They have calculated overheads as 2.3 for CB and 3.9 for TJ. Total cost is given, selling prices are given, and the margins are given. You can see that. Then they say overheads, property costs are 75% of total overhead cost. Quality control is 23%, production setup is 2%. And they've also identified the cost drivers for you. So the activities are identified, the drivers are identified. So step number 1, 2, and 3, I told you most of the time will be done for you. If the overheads above the reallocated under ABC principles, then the result would be that the overhead allocation to CB would be 0.05 higher. So they're already telling you. They're telling you. You don't have to do the big workings. And the overhead allocated to TJ would be 0.3 lower than previous. Explain why overhead allocations have changed in the way indicated above. Why do you think they have changed from absorption to ABC costing? Why do you think they have done that change? What's the reason for changing? So what are the advantages of ABC? That's what you'll have to talk about here, right? Because thing is, you can see that with ABC costing, we have identified that more overhead should go for CB and lesser for TJ. So basically, ABC costing will be able to more accurately allocate overhead costs. Therefore, you can more accurately predict your total cost, and also your selling prices can be more accurately placed. Now, for example, TJ's cost will be going down, right? So TJ can be sold for a lower price as well. Right? So you can do better cost allocation. Because of that, better pricing decisions can be made when you use ABC costing. What are the other advantages? What are the other advantages we can talk about? See, they said, but the first thing to point out is that the overhead allocation to the 2 products have not changed by much. However, it's not a very big change, one thing. Even after using ABC, there was not a big difference in the overhead cost. For example, the CB has absorbed only 0.05 more overheads. The reason for such a small change is that the overheads are dominated by property costs, because most of the overheads are coming from one property cost, 75%. And the driver for these remain machine hours. Oh yeah. See, the main overhead here is property cost, and the driver is machine hours, like what they used previously. So that is the main reason. That means the different overheads are very tiny portion. Can you see that? Just 25%, the other overheads. So that is why there is no big change. Thus, no difference will result from the switch to ABC in this regard. The major effect on cost will be for quality control. It is a major overhead of 23%. The other 2% one doesn't even matter. And there's a big difference between the relative number of machine hours for each product and the number of inspections. The CB takes less time to produce than the TJ due to the shortness of the books. It will therefore carry a smaller amount of overheads in this regard. The TJ does not take that much time. However, given the high degree of government regulation, the CB is subject to frequent inspection. CB has a lot of inspections, so that is why more of that overhead is going there. The extra is coming because of that, because of the higher amount of inspections. Whereas TJ is inspected only rarely. This will mean that under ABC, CB will carry a high proportion of the quality control cost and hence change the relative cost allocation. So that's the main reason the cost has changed. The production setup costs are only a small portion of the total cost and would be therefore unlikely to cause much of a difference in the cost allocations between the two products. However, this hides a very big difference in treatment. The CB is produced in 4 long production runs, whereas TJ is produced monthly in 12 production runs. The relative portion of overheads allocated under 2 overhead methods will be very different. In this case, TJ would carry much more overheads under ABC than under machine hour basis for overhead absorption. They are saying if they had used the production runs, even the cost driver they have used here, if production setup cost was a big portion, then it would have caused the difference, but it was very small, right? So it didn't cause a difference. There was a big difference in the production runs that would have affected the setups, right? But it was just a small portion of the cost, so it actually did not make a difference. They are asking you why the overhead allocations have changed, like why did the cost change? So due to which cost did it change? It's not the advantages, it's mainly like why did each cost change? What? Yeah, and why there's not a big difference. Then they're given you more details. The directors are keen to introduce ABC for the coming year and have produced the following cost and selling price data. The paper used costs $2 per kilo for a CB, but the TJ paper costs only $1 per kg. The CB uses 400 grams of paper for each book, 4 times as much as the TJ uses. Printing costs $30 per liter. The CB only uses 1/3 of the printing ink of the larger TJ. The TJ uses 150 ml of printing ink per book. The CB needs 6 minutes of machine time to produce each book, whereas TJ needs 10 minutes per book. The machine costs $12 per hour to run. The sales price are to be 9.3 and 14. As mentioned above, there are 3 main overheads: property cost, quality control, and production setup. The CB will be inspected 180 occasions next year, whereas TJ will be inspected just 20 times. Yola Publishing will produce its annual output of 1 million CBs in 4 production runs and approximately 10,000 TJs per month in each of its 12 production runs. Calculate the cost per unit and the margin for CB and TJ using machine hours to absorb the overheads. That means using traditional costing. So then, anyways, using cost per unit. Using machine hours, using traditional option costing by using machine hours. You got it right. So first we have to take the direct material cost, correct? You have CB and TJ. What are the direct material costs? Paper. First, the paper. Paper used costs $2 per kilo for CB and TJ costs $1 per kilo. CB uses 400 grams of paper for each book, 4 times as much as the TJ uses. So 400 grams meaning what? 400 divided by 1000 into 2. 0.8, right? Correct? Because 2 kilos, $2 for a kilo. So for 400 grams, it will be 2 into 0.4, right? 0.8. They are telling you this 400 grams is 4 times as much as the TJ uses, meaning how much does the TJ use then? 100 grams, right? 100 grams. So it's 0.2. Printing. Ink costs 30 a liter. CB uses 1/3 of the printing ink of the larger TJ. TJ uses 150 ml. So for TJ, it will be 150 divided by 1000 multiplied by 30. And they're telling you that CB uses only 1/3 of this. Correct? So the CB we take into 1 divided by 3. 13, sorry, 4.5 into 1 divided by 3. 1.5. Then that's all for that. CB needs 6 minutes of machine time to produce each book. So there was also machine cost, right? Yeah. There's machine cost. CB needs 6 minutes of machine time to produce each book, whereas TJ needs 10 minutes. The machine costs $12 per hour to run. So 6 minutes meaning 6 divided by 60 into 12. 1.2. And for the other one, 10. So 10 divided by 60 into 1 into 12. Right. Now we have to get the overheads, but first we have to use the normal OAR. How do you calculate OAR? They've told you to calculate OAR by taking what? Total overheads divide by total machine hours. What were your total overheads? 2,880,000. This is the traditional method, right? What were the total machine hours, guys? Jola will produce its annual output. How do you get the total machine hours? Total machine hours, how do you get it? Total machine hours will be what? They told you 6 minutes for 1 unit of CB. So 6 minutes into how many books of CB are you making? 1 million, right? Plus 10 minutes, 1 book of TJ, you're making 10,000 units of TJ. Annual output per year. Annual output of 100,000 in 4 productions. So they will divide it and produce. But the total output is 1 million. But wait, we are going to get it in minutes. Then we'll have to convert it to hours. And approximately 10,000 per month in each of the 12 months. Ah, okay. Yeah, so this is 10,000 a month, meaning 10,000 a month, meaning for a year, how much? 120,000. So totally how much? How many minutes, and then you have to convert to hours. How do you do it? So yes, 6 million minutes. It's many minutes, but we need the hours, right? 120,000 hours. So what was the OAR per hour? $24 per hour, right? 24 per hour. So now CB takes how many? It doesn't take hours, right? It takes minutes. So 6 divided by 60 into 24, 2.4. But you got the answer. 10 divided by 60 into 24. This is the correct way of doing it. So what's your total cost? They ask calculate the cost per unit and the margin. That means they want selling the margin as well. But first tell me what's the cost per unit? Yeah, total. 5.9 and I'm going with your answer. So to get the margin, you have to put the selling price 9.3 and 14. So what are your margins? Margin meaning of profits. 3.4. Okay. So this is when they use traditional costing. Now the next part, B part. Calculate the cost per unit and the margin for CB and TJ using ABC costing principles to absorb the overheads. Now here guys, we have to follow the steps, right? Generally, they would have done step number 1, 2 and 3 for you. What were the step number 1, 2 and 3? Look at step number 1, 2, 3. Identify the activity. They've already identified it for you. They told you the 3 activities. Allocate the cost. That also they have allocated and given. Identify the cost driver. They had already identified right earlier. The first part of the question. Here, first part of the question, they have identified. So step number 1, 2 and 3 is done for you. Step number 1, the different activities. What were the different activity? Property cost, quality control, and production setup. It was already identified for you. And step number 2, allocate the cost. That also they are done for you. And step number 3, identifying the cost drivers. That was also done for you. Machine hours, no of inspections, no of setups. Now guys, we have to do step number 4. What is step number 4? Let's get back. Step number 4 is cost per driver. Total overheads divided by total drivers. So total drivers we now have to take. Find the cost per driver. Total overheads we know. So I'm just going to take the short forms PC, QC, and PS. The 3 costs. What were the total overheads? Okay. Now, what were the drivers? There were 2 products, guys. There were 2 products. What were the 2 products? CB and TJ. What's the driver for product property cost? Machine hours. How many machine hours for CB? Machine minutes we found here. How many hours is this? 6 million. 6 million minutes is how many hours? 100,000 hours. So CB is 100,000 hours. TJ is how many hours? Divide by 60. 20,000 hours. So tell me how many total hours are here? Total is what? We'll take the totals. First, let's put the data. Then QC, quality control, is driven by number of inspections. What are the number of inspections? CB will be inspected 180 occasions, whereas TJ will be inspected just 20 times. PS, that means production setup, is driven by number of setups. Guys, generally after every production run, it will be set up. Right. So for Jola, there are 4 production runs, meaning there will be 4 setups. For TJ, there are 12 in each of it per month in each of 12 production runs. For TJ, there will be 12 production runs. Okay, so we have taken the data. Now I'm going to take full screen for this. How did you find cost per driver? What was the formula? Cost per driver, we take what? Total overheads divide by what? Total drivers. So we have to find the total drivers now. We have to find the total drivers. So how many total machine hours are there? 120,000 machine hours. How many total inspections are there? 200 inspections. Total setups, 60. Now we have to find the cost per driver. Meaning you have to take this, divide by this. The total overheads divided by total drivers. So we find the cost per driver. Now can you all tell me 2,160,000 divided by 120,000. So what you didn't watch ABC costing? No, but you have to do this. Yeah, but this is the way to do it. So it's 18 per machine hour. $3,340 per inspection. Yeah, if it's section B, it's not a problem. With section C, you have to show. Yeah, but this will come in section B, so you don't have to show. Per setup. Other question, this won't come in section C. You don't have to show in section B and A. Section A, B, not necessary. Section C, yes, you can get marks. Right? Okay. Yeah, but if it is wrong, you can get question marks. Right. So now we have found the cost per driver. What is step number 4? Sorry, step number 5. What was step number 5? Absorb the overhead cost into the product. Absorb the overhead cost into the product. What are the 2 products we have, guys? CB and TJ. Property cost. For CB will be what? 18 per machine hour into 100,000 machine hours. So what's the property cost for CB? 18 per machine hour into 100,000 machine hours for CB. 1,800,000. What's the property cost for TJ? 20,000 machine hours into 18 per machine hour. Quality control. 180 inspections for CB into 3,340 per inspection. Yeah. For TJ, 20 inspections into 3,340. Okay. Then production setup. Four setups into 3,250. 12 setups into 3,250. So now what's the total overhead cost then for CB? 1,800,000 plus 601,200 plus 13,000. So that comes to 2,400,000. This is the total overhead for CB. What's the total overhead for TJ? It is 360, no, not 3 million. 360,000 plus 66,800. So this is total overheads now, but we need the overhead cost per unit, right? Number of units produced was how much? C, we made 1 million units. And this we made 120,000 units. So overhead cost per unit will now be 2.4142 and here 3.59. Right, but they wanted the per unit cost, right? What did the question want? Calculate the cost per unit and the margin. So cost per unit using ABC. You can see how much of working ABC required. Paper, printing, machine is all the same, right? That's no difference. Paper, printing, machine, it's the same as normal. Just that the overhead cost per unit is now different. Wait, I will show you. Let me finish this. These will be the same. But the overhead cost per unit is now different. It's 2.142, but pretty similar. Very similar, but not that big difference. No, it's almost that. It's very similar. Very similar, not at all. There's no use of using ABC. Can't you see that? It's like so close. Is there a difference? Yeah, what did you get? Wait, let me check. I have done a calculation error. Let me double check. Really, I have a calculation error. I'm saying. Yeah. But I have a calculation error. Oh, this is 39,000. But still, the difference is very less. I don't think you justify using ABC. What's the point of doing so much workings when there's such a small difference? When there's a big difference, then yeah, it's justifiable, right? Yeah, but if they ask you, yeah, useful, but right now, no, it doesn't justify. Not a big save, not a big difference. Yeah, I feel not necessary. It's not a big difference. No, you don't have to. If you have a valid point, you can give your own point. No, but you can, even for A levels, you all evaluated, right? You all gave both sides. Yeah. Yeah, they don't have to ask you to choose. They'll ask you because they tell you what is your opinion, right? No, you didn't have to choose because they no, because the questions are in such a way, right? So it asks you what is your opinion. So you have to give your conclusion. In A levels, the conclusion was must. Here, the conclusion is important, but they don't ask you to give your choice, right? You can speak both sides.
So Miss, basically in this, we don't have to really choose a side. We have to just give both sides.
No, it depends on the question. If they ask you what choice you make, then you have to choose. But generally, they don't ask you for a choice, right?
Yeah, mostly they don't.
They don't ask you for a choice. So that's why you evaluate both sides. Yeah, then you can give. So they'll ask you whether what do you think, what do you suggest? So you have to give your suggestion. If they have not asked your suggestion, if it's just the evaluation, you can look at both sides. Or you may just say, but however, maybe this would be the better things to go ahead with. But it doesn't give you any like definite answer. But guys, do you think that it's worth using ABC in this situation? There's no difference at all. Like a tiny, weeny difference. So I don't think it's justifiable to spend so much time and use ABC costing. Because when we used ABC costing, we did so much of workings to get this. Anyone wants to copy the workings down? I showed you all how to use the steps, right? When you absorb the products, you have to first take the total and then divide by the total number of units produced to get the overhead cost per unit. These are the steps involved. But it's a good question because I got to teach you all the steps, revise through all the steps. So with ABC costing, they calculate the cost per driver. But even after doing that, there's not a big saving here, right? So if they ask you, this is not worth ABC, it's not worth spending time and money using ABC costing in this situation. You can just use a blanket OAR. So with Jola, that was all the questions. So they did not ask you to explain anything, so we don't have to give an explanation, right? But very similar.
Miss, I did the Jola question and sent it to you, right?
Yeah, but now you think you went through it. I want me to
Yeah,
check your.
Miss, the thing is, I honestly understand the method, what I have to write and stuff, but I think there's an issue with the way I write. So that's why, Miss, if you could just check the way I write is correct, then all good.
You wanted me to check your theory here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
One moment. So here they wanted you to talk about why there's a difference in the costing. Can you send it again, dear? Only that. Don't send everything, only that.
One moment, Miss.
So I can check it now also.
Yeah. Yeah, I did only the same part for the right.
What's the question is? What do you want to do? You tell me what you want to do. From ABC, all have any questions? You all want me to do a more like from section A? What's it? What do you want me to do? A? You're okay, good. Okay, I'm not saying it. So now you have to tell why is it only falling by little. So you have to explain that it's only falling by a little because even when using ABC costing, 75% of the cost is property related and that cost is driven by machine hours. So earlier also you use machine hours and even now using ABC, 75% of the costs are driven by machine hours. So that is why there's a very small fall. You have to explain that. Right?
Yeah.
And the last paragraph is wrong. You have to mainly explain that, like, why has the prices changed? And then you have to say that that other 25% was driven by other factors, but the main reason why there was a change is because of what was that? Is because of, no, there was a change because of the quality control, number of inspections. So to explain why then majority went for this because what you call CB had more inspections compared to TJ and they needed more inspection. They needed more inspection. That mentioned that, right? So because of that only more weights went there. The other one, production setup doesn't have a big difference at all. So that is what you have to talk about. You have not spoken about all of that.
Right. Okay. Oh, is that my point is wrong? Or is
Your
it that
point is correct. Your first point is okay, but you did not still talk. You did not give what they wanted. They wanted. They asked you why was there a difference, or why
Okay.
was there not a difference?
Okay.
Yeah, that you know always justify like why has this changed? So if this has changed or it has changed by little, but why has it changed by little? They ask you the reason, so you have to explain all of this, right?
Like we have like
Ratios.
yeah, ratio.
Yeah.
Saying that for that particular exam, we
It may be due to this.
can maybe never write PP.
So FR is said may like not to give your guesses. You have to give the definite reason why it happened.
It's in the answer you
Yeah. If it's in the answer, you use it, but you could say that it may be as a result of other reasons. But we do not have enough information. PM generally, no, PM also you have to link from the question itself. But if there is limited information, you can say that, okay, we do not have, we have limited information to make a better conclusion. We would need more details.
that we should
Yeah, because FR is different. They would have given you the linkage. You have to find it from there, like what caused it. It is there, but in PM sometimes that exact reason for certain things you might not have, but you can still say that more information on this matter would have helped you make a better conclusion. You can tell that to them. Okay. So with Jola, that's all. Then ABC, all need any more questions to do for ABC? Are you all fine with ABC? Because actually ABC I've already done almost all questions. You all want me to do anything else for ABC or shall we go to the next area? Any doubts with regarding to ABC you want to clear?
No, miss. I would prefer if we do more variance questions, miss.
Yeah, but I will be going in the order. I'm doing
All
first.
right.
Right?
We can move to the next section,
Actually,
miss.
I'll tell
ABC.
you now. I'll tell you wait, explain. So
another form.
yeah, we can also have doubt clearing classes. You all want additional classes?
Are we going to have a
Yeah, but if you want, we can have another mock close later. Not a problem at all. Then we can discuss. This
Yeah,
one
miss.
is-
Can we have one?
Yeah, sure. I have marked your mock papers. But I'll send it to you. I have to have a meeting today night. I have marked the papers, but yeah, I have your paper. You want me to show everyone your paper? I marked it on this tab yesterday. I'll show it to you during the break. Where's my, why have I come this far? One moment. Yeah, so how I'll be doing the areas. Today I'll be covering all the costing areas, revising through meaning target, life cycle, activity throughput, that areas. Today is that. So next week it'll be relevant costing, cost volume, limiting factor, pricing decisions, still that. So we,
On your,
where are you now?
260.
Okay, the students who are external, this is a study plan I've given the students, right? So I've told them to start chapter wise,
No,
right? Where are you?
I'm done with data.
You're done with?
I'm done with data.
You're done with day 12. So you've done a lot. That's good.
Like,
Right.
I've done almost everything.
Okay.
Miss, I am done with all the theories. Now I've started the questions.
Superb. So, right, the study plan is like basically if you're full-time students, if you are part-time students, you'll take double the time for sure, right? If you are a full-time student, you can do this in 16 days, but if you are a part-time student, you will take double the time, right? So you can see like each day you have one, and I've recommended students at this point, right, to also focus on theory, to complete 100% of revision kit, but don't worry, that is automatically being done when you cover this, you would see that, right? And you have to cover the last 5 past papers in the practice platform. I think that you can get access to the Premier Plus. Please contact them and see how you get access to it. Right, cover all technical articles in the ACCA website. Technical articles, when you all are doing each chapter, go and read it. Right? Plan requires minimum of 4 hours a day, but it depends student to student. And the last 10 days, that means by the like 2 weeks before, like by the 20th of November or 25th of November, you should be done with everything, and you should, after that onwards, you should be doing only past papers, right? Attempt questions on the study hub, please do not forget that. So I'm just reminding you on the study plan as well. What? Yeah, but what you would see is we have done a lot of questions in class. By the time you're done with your study plan, you'll be doing these questions as well. And we are now doing more questions during revision as well. So you would have finished everything. But still towards the end, you need to have, like, there may be questions you have missed. So you should try all questions, because for a paper like PM, practicing questions is so important. Because, only practice gives you like an understanding of how they are going to test you and what kind of thinking they'll put you into, right? So you have to practice to develop your thinking skills. Where do you go wrong? And you have to understand, okay, these are the places I'm going wrong, these are the mistakes I'm doing. You need to work on that, right? So individually, each student will have their situations.
I had an issue in cost gap. I made the same mistake in the
Cost gap. Practice questions on that area. So I'm looking at target costing and also life cycle costing, and after which I'll be doing a question. Now we're going to go through target costing and life cycle costing. Please study through the study hub, because they have the latest updated questions, right? Don't miss the study hub. Target costing. Okay, so tell me now, what kind of company uses target costing? What kind of company should be using target costing? Anyone remembers? Target costing is appropriate for a company in which situation? In what kind of a market? A competitive market where you cannot set your own selling price, where you have to take the market price. In a situation like that, target costing is useful, because with target costing, we first identify what our product is. In step number 2, we take the market price, because we are unable to set our own price. We take the market price, then we decide, okay, this is the price at which we can sell, right? So the target price is decided first. Let's say we have researched the market and our price is 25. We can't sell more than that. Now we decide how much profit do I need. Let's say I need a profit of 5. So what should my cost be under? My cost should be under 20 to achieve my profit of 5. So with target costing, I first decide my selling price. First selling price, because I have to take the market price. Then I decide how much profit I want, and then I determine my target cost, right? And then I compare my current cost. I compare my current cost with what? Let's say my current cost is 23. I compare my current cost with my target cost. That is the cost gap. So there's a cost gap of 3. That means my current cost is $3 more than my target cost. So because my current cost is higher, it means that I am not achieving my desired profit. I want to make a profit of 5, but I am only making a profit of 2. So if I want to make my desired profit, I need to reduce my cost more, right? So I have a cost gap. What do you mean by cost gap? A difference between the current cost and the target cost, right? How did you take 53 with the current cost? Why did you start this though? You told me. You forgot. Okay, go back to it. So that's the thing, when you practice, you understand. Negotiate with customers. If a cost gap still exists, you try your best to see if you can, you tried your best, but your current cost, you can't put it down. Try to see if you can increase the selling price. In most situations, you won't be able to, but try your best. Let's see if that can be done. So these were some examples. I'm not going through that. So cost gap is the difference between your current cost and your target cost. Examples I'm not going through. How do you reduce your cost gap? So if your current cost is more than your target cost, we need to go through all expenses. See whether you can reduce your material cost by eliminating unnecessary material or eliminating waste. Yeah, okay. Find alternative cheaper material. Look for alternative suppliers. Quality should not be compromised. That is something you have to keep in mind. Labor costs, try to reduce the labor cost by using maybe lower skilled staff, or by improving their productivity, they can reduce on their wastage or idle time. That will also help you reduce labor time. Other areas like you can think of increasing automation, reducing incidence of cost drivers, because that will reduce overhead costs. And maybe like consider redesigning your product by using cheaper material, right? So it is not possible to close the cost gap by increasing selling price, right? Therefore, we are trying to reduce our cost, right? Very common question, right? How the cost gap may be closed. So you first review your product features, right? See whether any unnecessary features can be removed, right? Remove features that add to cost. Use a team approach and try to understand, make your staff discuss on different ways to reduce cost. Review the whole supply chain. That means see whether you're buying it from the cheapest supplier possible. Get quotations from suppliers you're not buying currently. Try to find international suppliers who can supply at a lower cost. So these are all things you can look at. Increase your efficiency, because efficiency improvement will reduce wastage, right? Which will help you reduce your cost and also improve your productivity. Standardize your components so that you can buy in bulk and achieve economies of scale. And also automation can help you reduce your costs. Yeah. Again, target costing, just like ABC costing, can also be used in service industries. So that was the recap on target costing. Basically, what I'm doing is giving you a recap and practicing questions. So we also did life cycle costing. What was the aim of life cycle costing? We wanted to cap all the costs incurred throughout a product's life cycle. So we took costs that was incurred in all stages of the product's life cycle. The cost incurred at development, plus at introduction, plus at growth, plus at maturity, plus at decline. You try to trace and forecast your total life cycle cost. You take total life cycle cost. So this involves a lot of forecasting, right? This costing method involves a lot of forecasting. It's very good for products that have a short life cycle, products where you have heavily invested, or unique product that you're putting out, right? Life cycle costing would be suitable, but it takes a lot of forecasting, meaning it's very costly, right? So there are some examples. But how did we calculate life cycle cost per unit? We took the total life cycle cost So we basically trace the total cost, all costs incurred in year one, then all this cost we added. We divided into 5 years, the total cost. In market research, all years together total cost, product design total cost, advertising altogether total cost, manufacturing altogether total cost, disposal all. So we take all the costs. And what was the total cost throughout the life cycle? 11,425,000. We divided the total life cycle cost by the total units manufactured over the entire life, 39,000 units. And we found the life cycle cost per unit. So that's how we found life cycle cost per unit. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of forecasting actually, but nothing to worry. In the exam for you, they would have done the forecasting. So you just only have to do this small calculation. The benefits is that it gives a more complete and accurate picture of the product's life cycle profitability. It results in better decisions, especially when you're trying to set a price at the beginning, right? If you want to penetrate into the market, if you want to use penetration pricing, it will show you whether you can do it or not. There are longer term positive implications in decision making. Identifying the cost incurred during different stages provides an insight and understanding of the true cost. So when you have understanding about the costs that you are likely to incur in the future, you're also likely to be able to plan those costs better. If you know that, okay, these are costs we are going to have in the future, you will try to plan it out and control those costs better as well. Non-production costs will become more visible because you're looking for it. So costs become more visible. And therefore, the potential for controlling them is also greater. How can you try and maximize your life cycle profit? Try to keep your design at the design stage. Try to design a simple product because almost 90% of your life cycle cost is decided at the design stage. If you now design a simple product, in the future also you will have little cost. If you design a complex product, in the future also you will have more cost. So at the design stage, get your teams involved and design something that's going to be easy to manufacture over the next 30, 20 years. So designing the product is very important at the design stage. Minimize the time to the market. If you have a very good idea, try to put that idea out there as quick as possible. Maximize the length of the life cycle itself. Try to make your product live long, right? Use extension strategies, keep advertising, keep it relevant, keep the product competitive, and try to extend the life cycle. To do that, get the product to the market as quickly as possible. Why? Because when you're the first mover, you always have that first mover advantage. Find other users or markets for the product. Try to sell your markets in many different forms, in different places, to different customers. Market scheming, introduce with a high price, right? So that you can prolong your life and maximize the revenue. Minimize the break-even time. Try to sell quickly so that you can cover your costs fast. And therefore, you'll have more funds to help you reinvest and keep researching and developing for your future. Right? So these are important things you have to keep in mind to improve your life cycle revenue.
Miss, I have a doubt in life cycle costing.
What's
That
it?
is, Miss, the design stage, and I mean, they say that research and development stage is considered as sunk cost, right?
Life cycle costing, did they ask you to ignore anything? That is for relevant costing. For life cycle costing, there's nothing like sunk cost. We don't even think of sunk cost. That is only for relevant costing that we ignore sunk cost. But for life
Right.
cycle costing, all the costs are taken. We don't use relevant costing principles here.
Okay.
Okay, that's relevant costing. We
Thank
don't
you so
use
much.
that. We don't use relevant costing principles in life cycle costing. We have to take all the costs incurred throughout the life. And there is no sunk cost concept here. Okay,
Okay, Miss.
don't take that concept here.
Thank you so much, Miss.
No problem. Gerald and
That was second one.
Field, Mintzberg, billions of dollars.
That one.
What to talk about? No, there are 6 dimensions, right? You have to know that. They might give it, they might just tell you talk about the 6 dimensions.
You gave it.
I have given it.
You haven't given it to everybody.
You have to know what are those, but mostly they might give it, but what if they just say 6 dimensions, or they might just say the model name? You need to know what to talk about. We need to know those 6.
And the other one is that.
That's rewards. And so that is separate. Dimensions are different, rewards are different. So you learn each underneath.
You have three.
There are 3 categories. Each category has, yeah, not memorized. You need to know what comes under the categories. So that when you're talking about that model, you know what to talk about. Sometimes they'll ask you about the rewards and standards. No, reward should be motivating, reward should be clear, right? So you need to know the qualities of good reward. You need to know the qualities of a good standard. Sometimes they might ask you to link all together and it can come for 20 marks also. It can come. It can come. So if you come to 20 marks, they'll ask you to talk about dimensions, reward, standards, everything. You understand? So it can. Those are big questions. Okay. What did I do in class? I think I did the most who I have done. I have done a lot. I have done chemical pre-clean. I have done wall flow in class, the life cycle. I think I did not do I have not done this, right? So I'm going to do this. Yeah. Dara, I didn't do this in class, right? Confirm to me. I don't remember like I did it. Did I do it?
No, miss, we didn't do this.
For what? PPIM. Yeah, yes. When you started, no, they're quite quick at it. I think their hotline is a little slow. To come here, it's fast. That's why. Darasco is a global consumer electronic manufacturer. It sells its own brand of smartphones, computers, and personal entertainment devices. It uses target costing. DPAD feasibility study results. The board of Darasco has conducted a feasibility study in order to decide whether or not to launch a new device. The DPAD. In 2009, the DPAD will have a 3-year life cycle, for which a total of 80 million units will be sold. Variable manufacturing and selling costs of the D-pad is currently estimated at 123 per unit. The total fixed product cost, including investment and overhead, is budgeted to be 3,360 million over the whole life cycle. The initial estimate of the selling price included in the feasibility study for the D-pad was calculated to ensure a profit margin markup of 60%. D-pad market research analysis. The board decided to commission some market research to determine the price consumers would be willing to pay for the D-pad. Sales volume and sales prices were estimated for various stages of the D-pad's product life cycle as follows. Introduction, 8 million, growth, 14 million sales, maturity, 56 million sales, and decline, 2 million sales, 2 million of sales. Selling prices are also given at the different stages. Based on the market research, the board has approved the development of the D-pad as long as the total product cost, including manufacturing, investment, and overhead, does not exceed 13,000 million. First, we are reading everything briefly, right? And then when it comes to each question, we'll come to each area separately. Retail outlets. The board of Darasco is also considering the opening of some retail outlets, which will be located in major cities around the world. The outlets as well as selling Darasco's products will also hold free of charge surgeries where the product users can seek help on how to use their device and have their device repaired. Listen to this very carefully. The board has been discussing whether it's possible to use target costing in relation to the retail outlets. The following statements have been made. Director X says target costing cannot be used because it's difficult to estimate target selling price for our services. Director Y says target costing is most useful when what is being developed has a high degree of variability, such as developing new services. Director Z says target costing when developing new service is difficult because services are intangible and measuring a unit of service is not always possible. Which of the following statements about the use of target costing at Darasco are correct? It relies on just-in-time processors in order to work. Does target costing rely on just-in-time processors? It can be used alongside lifecycle costing and planning. What would your answer have been? Does target costing have anything to do with just-in-time? So you are rejecting one. I don't know. I'm going with your answer. It can be used alongside lifecycle costing.
Yes. I think B is the answer.
Yeah, these are all right. There is nothing to do with just-in-time and target costing, right? And it does not need to have just-in-time to work. You can use target costing in many different scenarios. Yeah, it can be used alongside life cycle costing, no problem. It's good to use alongside life cycle costing because we can try to find different areas throughout the life cycle where cost can be reduced. Next one, what was the initial selling price of the D-pad from the feasibility study results? Go to the feasibility study. Feasibility study is here, right? We only look at that paragraph. Feasibility study is only in the first paragraph, right? The second one. Don't need to read market analysis. What was the initial selling price of the D-pad from the feasibility study results? What was the feasibility study results? I'm just going to get the sketch pad. Yeah, pre-writing. So let's see what the feasibility study was all about. The board of Darasco has conducted a feasibility study. Now, guys, this is section B. You don't need to show workings. So you can do your rough workings, right? This. You saying go to settings and display brightness, text size. Perfect. Yeah, I could do. The board of Darasco has conducted a feasibility study in order to decide whether or not to launch a new product, the D-pad. The D-pad will have a 3-year life cycle over which a total 80 million units will be sold. So they are having a 3-year life. Over this 3-year life, they're going to sell a total of 80 million units. The variable manufacturing and selling cost of the D-pad is currently estimated at 123. Variable manufacturing and selling cost is 123 a unit. The total fixed product cost, including investment and overhead, is budgeted to be 3,360 million over the whole life cycle. So what's the fixed cost per unit? What's the fixed cost per unit? 3,360 million for the entire 80 million, right? 80 million units. The fixed cost is 3,360 million. It is for 80 million units, right? So what's the fixed cost per unit? Someone tell me what's the fixed cost per unit? I'm going with his figures. So what's your total cost? Then they tell you The initial estimate of the selling price included in the feasibility study for the D-pad was calculated to ensure a markup of 60%. So how did they calculate the selling price? By taking a markup of 60%. Markup meaning you take your total cost, right? So what's your markup? Markup can be applied on cost. What's your markup? Margin can only be applied on selling price. What's your initial selling price then? Okay. So what was your answer here? What was your initial selling price based on the feasibility study? You all understood how to get it? Is that clear how it's got?
You can please type like
Where else do you have settings? Not. Based on the market research analysis, what is the total cost gap of the D-pad? If Darasco wants to achieve a profit margin of 45%. So now you read the paragraph on market research analysis. Sometimes there's a very big paragraph, but for each question you read what's relevant for that question, right? They ask you to find the cost gap. Now how do you find cost gap first? Cost gap is equal to what? Current cost minus your target cost. So we will need the current cost and the target cost. The board decided to commission some market research to determine the price customers will be willing to pay. Sales volume and sales prices were estimated for the various stages of the D-pad as follows. Based on the market analysis, the board has approved the development of the D-pad as long as the total product cost, including manufacturing, investment and overhead, does not exceed 13,000 million. So what is your target cost? Yes. 13,000 million is your target cost. For how many units? Are they asking cost per unit? What is the total cost gap? Total cost gap. So your target cost is 13,000 million. What's your current cost? Current cost we have to take from the feasibility study, right? We don't have it anywhere else. Does it come anywhere else? It's not there anywhere else, right? So what was your current cost?
13,000.
Yeah, based on your current data, your current cost is, current variable cost is this 80? This total here. Even the sales volume here is 80. 8 plus 14 plus 56 plus 50, yeah. So for 80 million, your current estimated cost is What's your current estimated cost? So what's your cost gap? Current cost 13,200, your target is 13,000. So there's a gap of how much? 200 million? Oh, wait. No. They gave us a link. Which? One moment. They told you if Darasco wants to achieve a target profit margin of 45%. Darasco wants to achieve a target profit margin of 45%. No. So we can do it from here itself, actually. Wait. Wait. Now, the sales price that they have given at the different stages is calculated how? How did they take their sales price? They have taken the sales price. If Darasco wants to achieve a target profit margin of 45%, that means the selling price includes a margin of 45%. So this selling price given here is 145%. So what's the cost involved here? How do we find the cost involved here?
Margin.
That's margin. So selling price is found by taking 145%, meaning it's including cost 100% and a profit of 45%, correct?
Cost.
Margin is profit over sales. 45 divided by sales is 100. Yeah, you have to take it like that. So this is 100%. Your profit was 55%, meaning how much is your cost? 55%. This you have to or what we can do is, without doing individually, a simple way to do this is find your current total revenue. We can't take this target cost, current cost, right? That is not our current cost, because we have to do it based on this market research information. Meaning, based on the market research information, what's the target revenue? Current total target revenue is how much? Yeah, that's easy actually. What's your total target revenue? So this is their total target revenue. Now listen carefully. This was when a margin of 45% was used. So what's our conversion formula? Profit, cost plus profit equals selling price or sales revenue. Profit 45, sales revenue 100. We need to find the 55, right? So this 220,160 represents what? The sales revenue, meaning it represents sales 100. So out of this, what's the cost? 55. So what's your current cost? 11,088. So this is your current cost. And you have to use that here. It's well below, right? What's happening is now this is that target selling price. Have they mentioned it anywhere? Estimated selling prices. Oh, so this is their target. Wait, 1 moment. This is their target revenue. And they have taken this to be the target cost. But actually, that 13,000 is also target cost, right? Because they say that they want to keep it. Yeah, they have done that. That's okay. We also have got the correct answer. It's not about the answer. It's about the logic here. We have got the answer. That's okay. But the logic. Why is 13,000 the current cost? I don't understand that. No, my equation is correct. That's what I'm saying. They have taken, listen, that's the confusion. They have taken this to be their target cost. But this 13,000 is also target cost in this case. They want to keep it below that, right? So it can be, students can question, although you all are not questioning. It's both of this is the target cost. Both of it is the target cost. But they're just asking you what is the gap. All estimates, right? There's no like current cost in this situation because nothing has started yet. That's the reason. But they have given us a threshold. No, it should be below 13,000. So it should be below 13,000. Currently, according to our estimate, it's 11,088. So when you compare with 13,000, we still have a gap of, we are well below, but 1,912. Got it? Next one. That will work. The following proposal has been made in order to close the cost gap of the DPAD. Introduce 24-hour working in the factories where the DPAD is made in order to increase production and build inventory. Introduce 24, now in order to close the cost gap, you tell me which ones are more suitable. Introduce 24-hour working in the factory where DPAD is made in order to increase production and build inventory. Is that a good way? Incorporate quality assurance inspection into manufacturing to reduce faulty units. Increase the sales and marketing spend in order to boost the sales volume of the DPAD. Which of this can successfully reduce the cost? What are your guesses? Y'all tell me. C. Someone says, Atika says C. What about you? What would you do in the exam? Think carefully. If you feel one is not right, reject it. 3 is out, you all are saying, yeah. Okay. 1 and 2. You feel like 1 is out. Yeah, building inventory will actually increase cost. Building inventory, it's only two, because 24-hour working can also make staff tired, and building inventory will only build or add to cost. So it's only two. In relation to the use of target costing for the retail outlets, which of the director's statements are correct? First one, target costing cannot be used because it's difficult to estimate target selling price for services. In a service business, he's saying you can't use target costing. Is he right?
No.
What did I tell you all guys at the end of the target costing chapter? Yeah,
I think
target costing can be used in service sector as well. That's what I don't know, you all tell me. This guy says target costing cannot be used because it's difficult to estimate target selling price for services. So is he right? They are giving retail outlets. It's a deep ad. Consumer electronic manufacturer sells their own brand of smartphone, computer, and personal entertainment devices. And now they are going to have retail outlets. So he's saying can't use target costing for retail outlets. Okay, so you all are saying X is wrong. Target costing is most useful when what is being developed has a high degree of variability, such as developing a new service. That means you are developing something very unique. So in a situation like when you're doing something very unique, target costing is suitable. That guy is saying you're making something very unique. When do you use target costing? In a competitive market or monopolistic market or monopoly market?
Competitive market.
So when
So
there
I
is
feel the answer is C, X and Y.
huh? They're asking who's correct.
Who
They
is
ask-
correct?
Yeah,
All right, okay.
of the director's statements are correct. Wait, is it target costing when developing new services is difficult because services are intangible and measuring a unit of service is not always possible. So what Z is saying is, he's saying not that he's not saying it's impossible. He's saying it's difficult. Yeah. So what are you going to say? He's not saying it's impossible. He's saying it's possible, but it's difficult. So anyways, what is your answer? I'm not Z only. Let's see. Correct. That guy, you know why his statement is right? Because he did not say it's difficult. He did not say it's impossible. Services, he said it's possible, but it's difficult. So that's why he was right. The other guy said it was impossible. No, that's wrong. It's possible. Yeah, exactly. No, nothing is impossible. In this situation, it's not impossible. It's possible. But yeah, it's difficult. So when they say cannot, then it's. So we'll take a short break and then after that we'll continue with throughput accounting. We have remaining throughput accounting and environmental accounting. What's the time? Only a 15-minute break, guys, because you already have a very short class. Come back at 4:05. Right, so we're starting off with throughput accounting. Throughput accounting is used in businesses that use just-in-time or any kind of Japanese manufacturing system like Kaizen, right? What's throughput? It's actually used instead of contribution. Contribution is generally found by taking sales minus all variable cost, right? But in a throughput system, we believe that the only variable cost is material cost. Because even labor, they believe is to be fixed, right? So throughput is sales minus only the material cost. So in a throughput environment, all other costs other than material, meaning including labor, fall into total factory cost category, right? So in JIT environment, there's ideal inventory is zero. They don't keep any inventory, right? So the work in progress is only valued at material cost. Throughput is very useful in JIT environments. So in traditional accounting, as inventory was an asset, but in a throughput environment, inventory is not an asset, it's a liability. So they don't hold any inventory. And inventory is building up only due to unsynchronized manufacturing because the manufacturing was not synced properly. They believe that inventory is a result of unsynchronized manufacturing. So it's a problem. Costs can be classified as either direct or indirect. Here there is no such classification. Product's profitability was taken by taking selling price minus total cost. But here, no, it's nothing like that. The profitability is determined at the rate at which money is earned. Profit can be increased by reducing costs. Here, profit is a function of managing your material costs, total factory costs, and your throughput. So the theory of constraints apply because you would try to overcome any bottlenecks. And if there is any bottleneck or a limiting factor, you will try to overcome it, right? And you will try to produce. If there is a limitation, you will try to produce the best combination of resources or products based on which product maximizes your throughput per bottleneck resource. Right, so in a situation of limiting factors, you try to optimize your throughput, right? There are 5 steps when there are constraints. You first try to identify your constraint, then you try to exploit your bottleneck, meaning you try to expand it. There is a limitation. Limitations can come in the form of limited material, limited suppliers, labor machine hour limitations, poor salesperson who are unable to sell, so limited demand. You try to exploit it, meaning you try to make it better, you try to increase it, right? And you try to make sure that all the processes are working at the same speed so that nothing like builds up inventory at any point. And you try to elevate your bottleneck and like make it, you try to increase your bottleneck, right? But it's a never-ending process. Once one bottleneck is elevated, or once one bottleneck is removed, you need to return to step number 1 and identify more bottlenecks. So it's never-ending process, right? You try to keep identifying your bottlenecks and try to keep eliminating your bottlenecks. How do you calculate the throughput accounting ratio? To calculate the throughput accounting ratio, you need the return per factory hour and the cost per factory hour. First step is to identify the return per factory hour. If you are making only one product, you calculate the return per factory hour by taking throughput per unit divided by product's time on the bottleneck. If you are making more than one product, the return per factory hour will be total throughput from all products divided by total bottleneck hours available. Cost per factory hour is always calculated using the same formula. Total factory cost, that's including the labor cost, divided by total time available on bottleneck. So to calculate the throughput accounting ratio, you use a return per factory hour and divide it by the cost per factory hour. Users of the throughput accounting ratio, so generally if this ratio is greater than 1, it means that the return is higher. If the ratio is lesser than 1, it means the cost is higher. So throughput ratio of greater than 1 would suggest that throughput or the return exceeds the operating cost. If it is lesser than 1, that means throughput is not sufficient to cover the operating cost. There are some limitations. It's only looking at the short term because we learn in economics as well, in the long run, all costs are variable, right? So only in the short run, we are looking at when we use throughput accounting. It concentrates a lot on material and other costs that might have an impact is not taken into consideration. It is more difficult to apply in the long term, I told you, because in the long run, labor cost also becomes variable. So it's only a short-term concept. If you are trying to improve your throughput, right, you can try and increase your selling price, reduce your material cost, reduce your operating cost, or you can try and improve your productivity, which might also increase throughput. So when there are bottlenecks, there are 5 steps. They might ask you, in a situation of bottlenecks, right? You are making about 5 products and there's a bottleneck. There's a limitation of maybe like labor time or sales demand or machine hours. So they might ask you, okay, despite this limiting factor, what is the optimum production plan? So we are making 5 products, but we are unable to make all products in the required quantities. We need to make a compromise. What's your optimum plan? How do you do it? You do it in 5 steps. You identify your bottleneck, you calculate your throughput per unit. Step 3, you calculate your throughput per bottleneck resource, like you do limiting factors. You rank them and you produce based on the rank, right? The optimum plan is based on the rank. So this is a throughput situation in a multi-product situation where you have to decide, because you have a limitation, you are unable to make all the products. So which products are you going to make and in which quantities? So that has to be made according to the rank. Yeah, PPAR, throughput accounting ratio. I just explained it. Yeah, there are notes. Why do you have my notes? But you write it down. You keep. I know what the formulas. I suggest you to take a paper, A4 paper. Listen, have a A4 paper and write down all formulas on that A4 paper. Okay, then you can study all the formulas not given in the exam. Today I'm having a very bad throat, so it's actually very difficult for me to talk. But I'm trying my best. Did I do flop pro in class? Right, I'm not done. But this is again a section B, a C question. You will not be getting this area in section C, right? It will be in B. But it's okay because it's still a good question to start with. Sharuni, are you doing the exam this time? I just saw you. Good to see you again. But I think you didn't do the exam yet, right? You're doing it only this time. You have applied for it. Okay, let's do this question. Ratio equation. Return per factory hour divided by cost per factory hour. Okay, look at this. Flop Pro makes 2 products. Flop Pro makes and sells 2 products, A and B, each of which passes through the same automated production operation. The following estimated information is available for period 1. Selling price, direct material, variable production overhead, and overall hours per product unit. Budgeted production sales of A and B are 120,000 units and 45,000 units respectively. The selling prices are 60 and 70. Maximum demand for each product is 20% above the budget. The total fixed production cost is 1,470,000. This is absorbed by A and B at an average rate per hour based on the estimated production level. One of the product operations has a maximum capacity of 3075 hours. That's the limitation. And has been identified as the bottleneck that limits the overall production and sales of A and B. The bottleneck hours required per unit of A and B are 0.02 and 0.015 respectively. Calculate the mix of A and B that will maximize the net profit of and the value of the maximum net profit. Now here they're asking you, there's a multi-product situation, they're asking you the optimum plan. So when they ask you optimum plan, there's what? There's 5 steps. Not ratio, they're asking the optimum plan. You have to identify the bottleneck that they've already done. You have to calculate the throughput per unit. Throughput per unit. Step 1 was to identify bottleneck. That was, bottleneck was 1075 hours of what? Some hours, not some hours. This is the bottleneck. Hours, the labor hours, I think. The hours is the bottleneck. Step 2, calculate throughput per unit. How do you calculate throughput? How do you calculate throughput? Selling price minus direct material. Step number 3 is what? Calculate throughput per bottleneck resource. Calculate the throughput per bottleneck resource. Now tell me the bottleneck resource here was the hours, right? So bottleneck resource per unit. For 1 unit of A, how much of bottleneck resource did you need? A required 0.02 hours and B 0.015. So what was the throughput per bottleneck per hour? Basically throughput per hour. What was the throughput per hour? 59 divided by 0.02. How much is it? The next one, 30 divided by 0.15. That's the throughput divided by the bottleneck resource. So basically, this shows you how much 1 hour gives you. If you put 1 hour of bottleneck hour to make A, you get 2,900 return. If you put that same hour to make B, it gives you only a return of 2,000. So based on this, step number 4, your rank. Which product should you prioritize? Which product should you prioritize? A. So rank 2 here. So that's your priority. Now step 4 or step 5, your optimum plan. So which product are you going to be making first? A. Should you take your maximum demand or your budgeted demand? Budgeted is 120.45. Maximum demands are 20% higher. To maximize the net profit, you should manufacture up to your maximum demand, right? So what's the maximum demand for A? What's the maximum demand? Maximum demand is 20% above the budget. So 120,000. What's the maximum demand for B? 45,000 into 1. So basically, we will want to make A first, and you will want to make all of this. But how many hours will it take? You have only 3,075 hours. A, to make the maximum demand of A, how many hours will be used up? So how many hours do you have remaining to make B? Meaning how many units of B can you make? 195 divided by 0.015. So B, you're only able to make 13,000. So this is the optimum plan. Yeah, we did it. I don't think that's stupid. Maybe they would have given it in A or B. They're asking what is the maximum, this is the best optimum plan. They're also asking you calculate the mix of A and B that will maximize the net profit, and also they ask you to calculate the net profit. So what's the net profit? First, what's the throughput? You're going to be making 144,000 units of A and 13,000 units of B. What's your throughput? Throughput per unit of A is how much? 58. Throughput per unit of B is 30. So what is your total throughput? And then you minus the total fixed production overheads. Or you have to also minus the variable production cost. To get net profit, you'd also minus the variable production cost. That will be into 28 plus 13,000 into what's your variable production cost? This amount. And then also minus the fixed cost. This is your maximum net profit. Anyone wants to copy this down? Oh, actually, in the first one, they have used contribution, not throughput. Why did I use throughput? Because they said to maximize net profit, right? Because of that, they did not use throughput, they used the contribution. When they say maximize throughput, this is right. But when the question is to maximize net profit, we have to use what? Earlier, traditional way of limiting factor, we have to use the contribution. So this, what I did now is to maximize throughput. Yeah, actually, I have done this. Wait a minute. The same thing. A and B that will maximize net profit. They've used the same terms. Right. But I think in the B part, they said that the bottleneck situation detailed in A still applies, but they are going to be using throughput. Can you see that? So earlier they were not using throughput. I'm so sorry, I missed it. I thought they were using throughput. Because actually this question, previously, the first part was to be done using throughput concepts, but they've changed this question. So here the thing is, in the first part, they have not mentioned throughput anywhere, right? So they use the normal principles of contribution. What I did now was for the second part, where they're saying to use throughput accounting. The same details, the bottleneck situation detailed in A still applies. Flopro has decided to determine the profit maximizing mix based on throughput accounting principles to maximize throughput return per contribution. All other information still applies except that variable overhead cost as per A is now considered to be fixed. So only thing is, everything here is okay, whatever we did, but they have told that the variable overhead is now considered to be what? Fixed. So when you are using throughput principles, they are asking you to consider the variable overhead as a fixed. So if we are considering it as a fixed, is now considered to be fixed for the short immediate term based on the value which applied to budgeted production and sales. So when we are calculating the variable cost, we have to calculate it based on the budgeted production. 28, it was budgeted for 120,000 units, right? So to take it for 120,000, although we made a different quantity. But it was fixed, no? So they had taken the total and they divided it by 120 to get the 28. Right. So here when we are taking the variable cost, we have to take it based on the budget. That's the only difference. So this answer that I have done here is for the B part because I have used throughput principles. Got it? This is the B part answer.
And that's why there was one.
I did not, because actually this question, the thing that has happened is, this question earlier was, the B part was in the A part and it was a throughput question. But now they've changed it. So in the first part, they have not mentioned anything about throughput, right? So they use the contribution. But thing is, this is not an exam type question. They will not give you this in section B. Throughput is only coming in section A. Okay. So you see, we have done the B part. All right, students. The A part, you do it using the normal limiting factors, right? Which you will learn again later. So A part, they use contribution per bottleneck and rank according to that and produce also according to that. So according to contribution, B was ranked number 1. Same thing you do it, but using contribution principles. Then in the next part, I'm not doing the A part. Calculate the throughput accounting ratio, Ashmat, throughput accounting ratio for product B, for the single product, which is calculated as they're given the formula as well. They ask you to calculate the throughput accounting ratio. How do you calculate throughput accounting ratio? Return per factory hour. By cost per factory. How do you find the return per factory hour? For a single product, they're only asking for B. No, return per factory hour, you have a formula, right? Throughput per unit. That's the throughput of B divided by hours on B. That is the limited hours on B. Throughput per unit of B was what? 58, right? And it took 0. No. B was 30. What was the return per factory hour? Oh, this ruler, it doesn't go. What was the return per factory hour? Cost per factory hour, you have to take all other costs other than material. Cost per factory hour, or you take total factory cost, meaning it's these two together. Both of this, right? 1470 plus 3540. It's fixed. 5010. Divide by total bottleneck hours available. $1,632. $75. So what's your throughput? Accounting ratio. Return per factory hour 2000 divided by cost 1629.27. 1.22. Got it? The last part of this question they're asking you. Comment on the interpretation of the throughput accounting ratios and their use as a control device. Your answer should revert to the ratio of B. Now this ratio of B is greater than 1, right? Look here, the ratio of B is greater than 1, right? Meaning the return is greater than the cost. While throughput accounting principles are applied, a product is worth producing if the throughput return per bottleneck hour is greater than the cost per hour. Where the ratio is less than 1, the cost exceeds the return and the focus should be on improving the size of the ratio. Efforts may be made to improve the position of each product and in total by focusing on areas such as improve throughput per unit by increasing selling price, improving the throughput per unit by reducing the bottleneck hours taken, or improving the overall cost position and reducing cost. The throughput of B is 1.22, which is greater than 1. Therefore, it is acceptable. The ratio is considerably less than that of A, which is 1.7. The product ratio may be used as a basis for monitoring the trend by product and in total. So in overall, product B is profitable. They're making a higher return than cost, right? That was about throughput. Environmental costing, there's very less questions. I think I'll have to find something here. Okay. First, let me just look at environmental costing in a small area. So it is about considering the aspects of environment, right? When you are planning your cost and taking into consideration the environmental cost. There are two kinds of environmental costs, internal and external. Internal are the costs that are incurred within the organization. External costs are incurred outside, like carbon emission, healthcare, energy, water wastage. It goes outside. It's imposed on society. Internal costs are taken in by the parties involved. So why is environmental cost important? Because you have to deal with it very carefully. Because in case you harm the society, you can be subject to financial penalties and taxes, right? So management accounting techniques that can be used for environmental costing are input-output analysis, where you compare your inputs with your outputs and see whether anything has, all your inputs in your output. For example, you input 2000 kilos of a material. Let's say only 800 kilos are in the products. Where did the other 200 go? We're trying to trace that. Flow cost is when you divide your total flow into three. Purchase of materials, how much did you purchase? How much went into the system and were delivered to customer? And how much material were disposed for waste? So there we can identify if any material went out. It's very difficult for me to talk today, but I'm trying my best. Activity-based costing is basically when you try to find environmental cost drivers. What drives your environmental costs? And you try to control those cost drivers. Life cycle costing, throughout the entire product life cycle, at all stages, in what and what stage will environmental costs be incurred? You try to identify those. Right? So when you're managing your environmental costs, these are the main costs you have to consider. The waste and effluent, the water consumption. Generally, we pay for water twice. Once to buy it, once to dispose it. The energy cost, transport and travel, consumables and raw materials. These are the places you have to look for. And all of these environmental costs, especially if they are very big costs, it has to be reported to management, right? The categories of environmental costs, you have environmental prevention and detection costs. This is to what? Prevent and detect any cost before it leaves the organization. Prevention is when you try to stop environmental costs from happening. Detection is if that has happened, we are trying to find it somewhere. Internal failure and external failures after failure has occurred. But internal failures before failure has occurred, waste has occurred, but it's still within your company. It's internal failure. If it has left you outside, if it has gone outside, it becomes what? External failure. So prevention and detection are cost of compliance, cost of complying by the rules and regulations. External and internal failure is because of non-compliance, because you went wrong somewhere, there are the failure costs. Internal failure is a little less serious, but external failure can be very serious because you can attract government attention, attention from pressure groups, all of that as well. Okay, answer this. The following have been made about environmental management accounting. It provides information mainly for external parties. It may include physical information about quantities of scarce resource. Huh? Is it mainly for the external party? Why are you doing management, environmental management accounting? Because you want to manage your environmental costs. So it's also for internal, right? So what's the right answer? Yeah, it can include the physical quantities of the raw materials used because you consider raw material cost, right? First one is wrong. The following are types of management accounting techniques. Which of the above techniques would a company use to account for its environmental cost? Low cost, input, output, life cycle, activities. All right. Here before. Input, output, flow cost, activity based, life cycle. Environmental costing can only come from theory, right? It will be tested on theory.
Right.
It can come like in any part of A and B.
In section B, the last two questions are theory.
Section C, you won't get this area in section C.
In section B.
Yeah, there will be some theory questions, right?
Then I know.
The last two are always theory. There is a pattern.
There is.
But fifth is always a theory. The following have been made about environmental cost accounting. The majority of environmental costs are already captured in organizations' accounting system. Input-output analysis divides material flow into three categories: flow, system, delivery, disposal. Three categories dividing is what? Flow cost, right? Not input out. Second one is wrong. What about the first one? Majority of the environmental costs are already captured somewhere in your organization system, but you're unable to trace it. Right or wrong? Yeah, it's already captured, but just we can't trace it. A lot of questions you can try because this will come in section A. A road haulage company has decided to adopt environmental management accounting and to include an analysis of its environmental costs in its monthly management reports under 4 cost categories. One of the significant costs of a company is fuel for the trucks. Under which category would it come? Conventional costs, potentially hidden costs, contingent costs, and image and relationship costs. Fuel for trucks. Contingent cost is the cost that we are likely to pay in the future. Are you spending for fuel to maintain your image and relationship? Is it a conventional cost or a hidden cost? That's the main thing. What do you mean by conventional cost?
I mean,
The fuel.
yeah, I mean, yeah. Like,
Using, but they did not talk about using good quality fuel or something like that. They just said fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an environmental cost because you're using up resources from the environment, right, for consumption. But yes, it's a conventional cost that has some environmental relevance from scarce resources such as fuel. Asking about the fuel. Which of the following would be categorized as internal failure? So internal failure is before the failure leaves your company by producer of bulk chemicals. Fines payable to government. Fines is when it's external, right? Cost of disposing toxic waste that is by a byproduct of the production process. This toxic waste is carefully collected in containers in the factory as it comes out of the process. Yeah, it has failed, but it's inside. Salaries and other costs of pollution monitoring team that monitors the emission to ensure they're below permits. That is about detection, right? Filtering equipment used to reduce emission into the atmosphere to reduce emission below legal limits voluntary. It's like about prevention. What one is internal failure? Two only. Two only. Disposal. By three salaries and other cost of a pollution monitoring team. They're trying to monitor and detect. Pollution has not happened. They're trying to monitor. Yeah, but still they're monitoring, meaning that what are you doing by monitoring? You're trying to detect. Detection is a big cost.
What they're doing.
Yeah, and also detection is a separate cost, right? They are monitoring and trying to detect. So that comes separately.
About the action that they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Which of the following should be categorized as environmental failure caused by an airline company? Compensation payments to residents living close to airports for noise pollution caused by the aircraft. Air pollution due to the airline's carbon emission from the aircraft engines. Penalties paid by the airline to the government for breaching environmental laws. Failure cost. One is it? I don't know. You all tell me. What did you
B.
mark in B? All three.
Yeah.
Let's see it all. No, it's correct. A company grows different types of tea leaves and blends them together. The tea leaves are picked by hand because too many leaves were damaged and wasted when picking machines were used. The tea leaves are then dried and processed and any waste produced is recycled. The company regularly tests its tea for contaminants in line with food safety regulations or laws. It recently identified that one tea plantation contained high levels of contaminated soil after the use of new pesticides. Identify the environmental cost classification of each of the following costs. Cost incurred to clean contaminated soil.
Internal failure.
Okay, I'm going with your answers. Staff costs for picking leaves by hand.
Prevention.
Cost involved in the recycling of waste. Did the waste leave outside?
External. No, I think
What do you all say for the third one? Internal. Last one, cost incurred for testing tea for contaminants. Testing to detect.
detection. So I think the third one is external failure.
What would you go in the exam with? Internal or external? I don't know. You all tell me. Make an informed decision based on the information provided. They said the tea leaves were picked by hand because too many leaves were damaged and wasted. And then picking machines were used. The tea leaves are then dried and processed, and any waste was produced is recycled. So what are you doing by recycling? Are you dumping it in the environment or are you keeping it within and recycling? I don't know. Let's see. Actually, the first one was external failure.
Oh.
That was right. The first one was wrong. Cost incurred to clean contaminated soil. The soil that is contaminated is where everyone lives as well, right? Contaminated soil. Tea leaves are picked by hand. It recently identified that one tea plantation contained high levels of contaminated soil after the use of pesticides. So it's one plantation, but there may be others living there as well. So that is external failure. And external failure caused because it's the result of discharging contaminants to the external, whatsoever it's in the soil, right? Although it's your property, it can spread. You understand? It can spread. So that's the logic they've used there. Yeah, no, but they should have been more specific there actually. They should have been more specific. It's a little, you can argue with me. It's my soil, then it's internal. But if it's spreading, then it's external. Which two of the following activities are internal failure costs? Just two are internal failure. Quality control inspection to monitor pollution levels in water leaving a production process. Monitoring is what?
Prevention.
What? No, detection. Water purification treatment to clean wastewater before it leaves the factory.
That's an internal thing, right?
Fitting of carbon filters to machine processes to reduce carbon emission. Prevention. Power usage measuring system to monitor energy consumption within the factory. Monitor is what? Yes. Payment of fines for breaching environmental laws. Installation of heating pipes in the factory to reduce heat loss. Prevention. Public relation cost to remedy reputational damage. Reputational damage is what? Capturing and recycling of waste exhaust gases to generate energy. Your
Internal. Miss, then monitoring is always detection.
Yeah. Monitoring. Why are you monitoring to detect, right?
No, because I was thinking in a way like monitoring means prevention. You're monitoring so that you're preventing anything.
Okay, look at this question. A company's actual production figures for a batch of products are as follows. Material, 2,000 kilos, total cost $10,000. Labor, also $26,000 for the 2,000 kilos. There's a normal loss of 10%. So your expected output was 1,800. You would have done it for MA. Good output was 1,700. So you had an abnormal loss of 100. In terms of environmental cost categorization, how would the normal and abnormal losses be described? Normal loss is what? Hidden or conventional? Abnormal. Contingent cost is something that you will pay in the future. So normal loss is what? Potentially hidden or conventional cost? One moment, I want to check this. Okay, I have not included this. That's the problem. Conventional cost, look at this. Let me explain this. Conventional cost, environmental related cost, buying energy and other scarce resources. Right? It's about buying the resources. Listen, Ashmat. Potential hidden costs, those environmental costs that are recorded but included in general overheads. So management is unaware of them. Contingent cost, it's a potential future cost. Cleaning up damage caused by pollution. In financial statement, contingent costs might be disclosed as liabilities or recognized as provisions. Image and relationship incur producing environmental reports and promoting the company's environmental activities. So conventional cost is something that you incur on a day, like a daily basis due to using environmental factors. Now, where does this fall in? Normal loss and abnormal loss. There was labor material included, right? So where does it fall? Normal loss, will it be hidden?
Yeah.
And abnormal, it's like this, right? Normal loss is valued at scrap. Abnormal loss is valued at what? The cost of unit, right? So tell me, normal loss is valued at scrap. Will it be shown anywhere? Abnormal loss, is it contingent by any chance? No. So contingent is out of the question, is it? So then what option do you have remaining? You have A remaining, but we can't mark anything here. Oh, sorry, I can't mark anything here. Why can't I mark anything here? I actually can't mark anything. The answer for that was A, by the way. It's not contingent because both of them doesn't have to be paid in the future. The only thing is, I tell you, we went question 33, right? Yeah, you know why? Wait, I wanted to explain that question. Because at the end, then I can't skip everything. Want to leave? Okay, I'll just explain to you. Abnormal loss is valued at the cost of unit, so it's conventional. Normal loss is at scrap, so it will be hidden. Right? So we can stop there, guys. Next week we'll continue with the others, right? If you have doubts, you all can approach me.